This is your one and only 𝐕𝙪𝙨81 with your daily dose of video goodness, and welcome back to some more ARK Extinction. Today we're going to deep dive into the Gacha's code to learn more about crystal production. Let's get to it. Alright, so here we are in the dev kit, and I want to make a correction to something that I said in my previous video. So we're taking a look here at the emotion check. So the Gacha has three separate states for the anti-farming mechanic, or whatever you want to call it. Emotions is what they refer to it as. I refer to it as the anti-farming mechanic, but anyway, they have three states. They have neutral, so the anti-farming mechanic isn't kicked in. They have happy, which is when they have eaten an owl pellet and they have the little shiny sparkles on their back. And then they have sad, which is when the anti-farming mechanic is kicked in and there's other gachas nearby. Now, what I want to point out here is that in the previous video I said that a single gacha would produce better for you than a mated pair, and that is not the case. It doesn't really matter whether it's a mated pair or a single. It completely skips the mated pair for the emotion check here. So if you take a look right here, it says that it skips babies and itself, and it also skips a potential mate. Anything else other than that, the mechanic kicks in and they are sad, which is the anti-farming mechanic. And then, you get less crystals, less everything from them. So having a mated pair will not affect your crystal production in any way whatsoever. Okay, so let's take a look at the crystal drop mechanic here. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the calculate the crystal quality. That's the main thing it checks. So it checks to see if it's running all that good stuff. Then it checks for the crystal quality. Then it goes from that, it sets the crystal quality. Then it takes into account the digestion pool and the current pool that it is on. Then it takes into account whether it is a tamed gacha or not. If it is tame, it passes to true. It goes over to this condition check right here. And then it checks against a random number. It checks that against the crystal quality, and then it calculates that item chance, and then it sees which one is greater. So we'll get into this here more in just a second. First off, we're going to take a look at the set crystal quality mechanic, because that is a main thing we need to take a look at here. So when it's judging the crystal's quality, it takes a look at the digestion pool and the digestion pool size. The digestion pool is each of the nodes on their back. So you can see here we have three separate pools here in the digestion pool, and that corresponds to the three crystals on their back. And then it picks whichever one of those is current as well. And then the digestion pool size, the number it divides against, is 1000. Now, what's interesting from that part is it takes a look at the efficiency factor and it gets the crystal quality multiplier. So let's take a look at the efficiency factor. So here we are for the efficiency factor. Now, all this does is this is the anti-farming or owl pellet mechanic check. So it checks the emotional level. It essentially checks to see if the anti-farming mechanic is kicked in or if they have an owl pellet. That's all this is doing. Then it does some math. If they have an owl pellet, they get a bonus. If they are sad and because there's other ones nearby, then they get a reduction. If they're neutral, I'm sure this math ends up being 0. So the other thing that it takes a look at is the crystal quality multiplier. And we have that mechanic right here, and that ties directly into the crafting speed. So if we come back over here and we follow through this, after it sets the crystal's quality and it passes on, it then calculates the item chance. So let's go over and let's take a look at that, because we can actually see the code to calculate the item chance. So this code's relatively straightforward. It clamps the value between 1 and 6 for this instance. So when it is calculating the chance to drop an item or not, that value is clamped between 1 and 6. The next values we need to take a look at are the maximum chance of item, which is 0.3, and the minimum chance of item, which is 0.01. So what it does is it subtracts those two, and you always get a value of 0.29. So what it does is it takes a value between 1 and 6, subtracts 1, divides by 5, multiplies that by 0.29, then adds 0.01 to that, and then that gets you your calculated chance. Now, I've done the math on this, a bunch of different things between 1 and 6, and it's always a number less than 0. It's always like 0 point something. So what I think happens, what it's doing here is it's checking against a number of either 0 or 1, and it's saying if that is less than or equal to, then it does true or false. I think what the engine does is if it chooses 0, it sees that 0 point whatever number as equal to 0. And then it passes on to true. If this random value comes back as 1, it's always false. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening here. If you know more about the Unreal Engine than I do and all this code, please hit me up in the comments so we can get together and discuss all of this stuff, because there's a lot to this I still don't understand. And anytime I come across something I don't understand in this, I'll straight up tell you I don't know what's happening here. But what I do understand, I'm going to do my best to explain. So anyway, by looking at the code, I don't really think there's a lot we can do to increase the chance of actually getting an item crystal. That appears to be completely random due to this mechanic right here. What we can do is we can influence the quality of the item crystal once it drops. So if we come over here and we take a look, it directly references the crystal quality again, and that goes into all this math and all this I do not understand when it's selecting the loot. The one thing I understand from this is that it takes into account crystal quality. So I think we can influence the quality of the crystal that's dropping by what we feed it. And part of that comes into when it's setting the crystal quality. So if we go back over to the calculate the crystal quality, you can see that it takes into account here the digestion pool. So what I'm figuring is the higher these numbers are in the digestion pool, the better quality crystal you're going to get, or the higher this basically is going to calculate. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, how do we know what's going to be good to feed it? Well, if we come over here to the get item food value, you can see it says get item base value. There's a function right here for that. The rest of this code, there's the affinity override, which that's the owl pellet. Whenever it says set premium, I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99.999% sure the set premium mechanic for premium food is the owl pellet. Now there could be something else out there that is considered a premium food, but I do know that when it sets premium, it gives them the happy buff. And the only thing we know that does that right now is the owl pellet. That's why I'm sure that the set premium is referring to the owl pellet. But the important thing we want to take a look at right now is the get base item value. And if we come over here to that mechanic, there's a lot of interesting stuff to look at here. And mainly I want to focus on where it says get item quality definitions and item quality index. So it's looking at the item's quality, and then it's taking the experience bonus you get from crafting a quality item and the base crafting experience of the item. It's multiplying that together. It's doing the square root. And then this part I don't understand because it's really confusing, because it sets the return value, but it's also multiplying itself by the return value. So in my mind, this creates an infinite loop. If anybody understands this better, please let me know. But anyway, once it sets the return value, if we come back over here, you can see that it ends the node with the return value. And that's what sets the base value of the item. So if we come back over to the get item food value, you can see that after it does that, then it goes over and sets the value. However, if it's premium, then it skips and goes to premium. So what does all of this tell us? Well, from what I've been able to pull out of all of this and what I've been able to understand is that we can't really influence the chance to get an item crystal. Once again, that appears to be random just due to what I'm seeing here from it, it locking this in to a value of 1 and 6 and then doing the math and it always being a 0 point whatever number, and this random number right here, and then it checks to see if it's, less than or equal to. From what I can understand, this is completely random, but when it does do it, it checks against the crystal quality a second time. And we can influence that number in this situation by more than the 1 and 6, because it only locks it in when it's calculating the item chance. It's the only time it locks it in to between 1 and 6. So what that tells me is that what we feed them can actually influence the quality of the crystal once the game decides that it is going to be an item crystal. So essentially, the higher quality items you feed it, and even more so, the higher experience gain you get from that item is going to overall increase that crystal quality. Now, once again, I have a very rudimentary understanding of everything that I'm looking at here and the dev kit. If anybody out there understands all of this more, let's get together. Let's crack this bad boy wide open, because I would love to understand every aspect of this and know how to break the mechanic. But from what I've been studying so far, and I've been studying this since the freaking dev kit was released, I think I'm pretty spot on with what I understand and what I've told you in this video. And that's about all I have for this one. As I understand more, I'll make more videos explaining more about what I understand. But for right now, that's all I got for you. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you like what you saw, consider hitting that sub button. I want to give a big thank you to my patrons for making this episode possible. You all are absolutely amazing people. If you would like to join my elite crew of Patreon supporters, please check out the link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. If you're shy, you don't like to comment, just hit that thumbs up button and show your support. Until next time, thanks for watching.